I think this lockdown has given us a lot of time to think of new ideas and experiment and invent new things. From Dalgona to the COVID vaccine, thinking out of the box, imagining, and experimenting has always led to new discoveries. I would request the mastermind behind this innovative research webinar series, Dr. Vineet Sir, to guide us about experimental study design and how can we proceed with this same. Vineet Sir?
Okay, I will share my screen. Am I audible? And is the screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and do I look fine?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Arya, for conducting such a wonderful session on an elaborate session. Actually, it's required because we are giving you a lot of topic in one particular presentation. So thank you so much for explaining about observational studies, all the different type of observational study. But as Dr. Arya said, observational study, we don't do any kind of intervention, or we don't do any kind of manipulation, or we don't do any kind of experimentation. But in this session, I'm going to tell you something about experimental studies, where you have to do some kind of experimentation, some kind of intervention, or some kind of manipulation. So until unless you do that, it's not called a experimental study. So hope you remember this movie, Chris 3. Now all the characters in this movie were the product of different experimentation. You know, some had a long tongue, or somebody could disappear, or somebody had a long arm, or something like that. They were experimented by the character, by the main doctor or scientist or whoever they were. So they conducted some experiment and they wanted to destroy the whole world. And then there was a protagonist, Chris, who was also out of an experiment. Something happened to him, some aliens intervened, and then they gave a character called as Chris. So all the characters are a product of intervention or an experiment. So in this session, I'm going to talk to you about experimental studies. Hope you heard about randomized controlled trials. So we are going to talk about a lot of randomized controlled trials in this session. So the whole concept of an experimental study is to imagine, invent, and inspire. All the products, all the dental materials, or all the drugs, or any of the equipments which you see, even the BP apparatus or thermometer or any instrument, the radiograph, the CBCT, the MRI scan, whatever product you see in this world are out of imagination. And then they invented it, and then they inspired, so the people can modify those products or the materials and gradually come out of a new product or a new drug or a new material, biomaterial or anything. But that invention can be done only with the help of an experimental study. Any invention can be done with the help of an experimental study. So what is an experimental study? It meant the study of epidemics among colonies of experimental animals such as rats and mice. This was happening by 1920. In modern usage, experimental epidemiology is often equated with randomized controlled trials. So these studies are similar to the approach to cohort studies, excepting that the conditions in which study is carried out are under the direct control of the investigator. So in an experimental study, you have the control of the whole experiment. You have the control of the results and everything. So it's called as controlled, because as Dr. Arya said, in a cohort study or in any kind of observational study, you don't have a control over any of the factors in and around the study. But in experimental study, you have a control over a lot of factors. How you decide to have a participant, what type of participant you want, what type of intervention you want to do, how the results are going to come out, everything can be controlled. So you will not have extraneous factors or confounding factors, very minimum confounding factors when you're doing an experimental study. It's the best epidemiological study designed to prove causation. If you want some drug to be effective, or even the COVID vaccine, you have to do experiment. You have to give it to the humans. And then only you will find out whether that COVID vaccine is working or not, right? So it's a best epidemiological study if you want to prove anything. And it can be viewed as a final or definitive step in a research process. If you do an experimental study, that becomes the final step of a research process. That is a gold standard. An experimental study becomes a gold standard. It is a mechanism for confirming or rejecting the validity of ideas, assumptions, postulates, and hypotheses about the behavior of an object or effects upon them, which results from interventions under different defined sets of conditions. Now, what is the aim of an experimental study? Is to provide scientific proof of etiological factor. Now, you know, smoking causes oral cancer, or, so if you if you tell somebody, take cigarette, smoke for 10 years, and let's see after what happens after 10 years, he will definitely develop oral cancer. He might develop oral cancer. So you are experimenting. Of course, you cannot do, because there are ethical issues regarding, you cannot tell anybody to take a packet of cigarette and smoke every day for 10 years. So that's wrong, that's unethical. But if you want to prove a etiological factor, you have this experimental study will provide scientific proof. Okay, and to provide a method of measuring the effectiveness and efficiency of a health service. Any health service, for an example, I want to run down a pit and fissure sealant program in Maharashtra. So that I want to see whether the caries is developing or not in the among the kids. So I have to apply that program, the pit and fissure program in Maharashtra. I have to do an experimental study there. Then only I can say that the program was effective or not. So if you have to prove any program to be effective, you have to do an experimental study. So understand this picture, you will understand the whole concept of a randomized control trial or an experimental study. Now you have an interventional group and you have a control group. You have a study population of which you have two groups. One group you will do the intervention, one group you will not do the intervention, and that is the control group. Okay, but you have to do randomization. I will tell you what exactly is randomization a little later from now. After doing intervention, you will see whether there is an outcome or there is no outcome. Okay. And similarly, in the control group, where you have not given any intervention, you will see whether there is an outcome or there is no outcome. So your experimental your experimental study starts from today and it is followed in the future. So it becomes a prospective study. You are going to follow the patients for a longer duration. I'll give you an example. Now, I have a patient coming to my clinic and I want to see if the music therapy, I have a small kid of 6 years or 7 years of age, and I have to do a pulpectomy for the kid. Now, I want to see if I give him a music therapy, whether his pain will reduce or not, whether he will feel a little less pain. And I have a control group where I have not given a music therapy. And then I have to see whether he is feeling less painful or more painful, whatever. So I have a two group. One group I am giving music therapy, and in a control group, I'm not giving any music therapy. I'm not giving any kind of an intervention. And among the intervention group, I'll see how many people feel, how many kids feel they have pain, how many do not have pain. Even in the control group, I'll see how many have pain, how many do not have pain. So this type of study design is called as experimental study design. Okay. Now we have talked about non-experimental, which was observational study. So this is a difference between observational and experimental study, or experimental versus non-experimental study. Experimental study, I told you already, we manipulate or control variables. In non-experiment, we don't do anything like that. We see the cause and effect relationship in experimental study. Variables are not manipulated by the researcher in a non-experimental study. We can see cause effect by case control study and a cohort study, but variables are not manipulated in an observational study. We just observe. You cannot 100% say that this thing will cause this until you do an experimental study. For an example, tobacco use and oral cancer, you can do with observational study also. You can very well say tobacco use has a correlation with oral cancer. But unless and until you do an experimental study, you will not understand that interventional program are effective or not. So for that, you will have to go with an experimental study. So when to use an experimental study? You cannot use experimental study in any of the study which you feel like doing. It's unethical. Sometimes it becomes very unethical. Sometimes it is not of any use if you are doing an experimental design. Anyway, you don't require it, but still you want to do experimental study because it's higher in the evidence or it's a gold standard. It's not necessary to do an experimental study every time. Okay, so I'll give you two examples, and if the answers are yes for both, then only you can do an experimental design. First, are you studying an efficacy of a therapeutic procedure, any treatment like a drug or a surgical procedure? If yes, you can go with an experimental study. Are you studying the efficacy of any preventive procedure? For an example, a vaccine or a sera or a chemoprophylaxis or some personal protective measure or an exercise program? Yes, if yes, you can go with the second question, or then you can go with the experimental study. Or are you studying an efficacy of a healthcare system or a procedure? So if the answers are yes for any of these, go to question number 2. Is your study feasible to randomly divide the subjects into two groups? Now, what is randomly dividing subjects? You cannot select subject according to your intention or according. You have to randomly divide them. You cannot be biased. You cannot say, this patient I will take in an experimental group and this patient I will take in a control group. No, you cannot do that. You have to do it randomly. You are not there to decide that, or else there will be a bias. And is it ethical to do an experimental study? If it is ethical, then it's an experimental study. If any of the answers are no, consider a possibility of quasi-experimental study. If you cannot do an experimental, you cannot divide the patients randomly, or if you cannot, it is not ethical, then go with a quasi-experimental study. Now, these are three important terms I would like you to understand when you are designing an experimental study. First one, replication. The second one is randomization, and the third one is local control. Now, randomized controlled trial consists of all these three things. It can be replicated, randomization has to be done, and there is a sense of local control. What is replication? Replication refers to repeatability of an experiment in a similar setting. If you are doing an experimental study, similarly, somebody else in the whole world can do it. It has to be made such like that. It should be replicated. The purpose is to increase the precision of result. If everybody can be able to replicate your study, it means new results are going to come up, and the results will become more and more precise. There will be less of experimental error. It facilitates other researchers to duplicate the study and check whether the results obtained are similar or dissimilar. Now imagine if your COVID vaccine is working in your population in Pune or Maharashtra or India. Same vaccine should be used, should be helpful for the human any place in the world, right? So your study design people should be able to replicate that. So that is the most important concept of replication. Then comes randomization. Randomization means it's a technique whereby each subject or an object in a research has an equal probability of being included in either experimental or a test group or control group. You cannot say that this patient I want in experimental study or I want in a control group. No, you have to do randomization process, and that is very important. Because of this, there will be less bias in your study. And it is a statistical technique of assessing subjects into different groups randomly. Okay. The third important point is local control. The process of reducing experimental errors by providing the relatively heterogeneous experimental area into homogeneous units. So you have a local control. You can control on the extraneous factor. Okay. You have a control over the participants, you have the control over the experiment. So there cannot be other factors which are going to help. which are going to affect the results. I'll give a simple example. For an example, a patient comes to your clinic. There are two patients in your clinic. One patient, both the patients has fever. Now you know there is a drug paracetamol for fever. You want to do an experimental study for your new drug. It can be an Ayurvedic drug or a herbal product of a drug which will reduce the fever. So to one patient, you will give a paracetamol, and to one patient, you will give a herbal drug or any Ayurvedic drug. And then ask the patient after 2 days or 3 days whether his fever has reduced or not. Fair enough? So during this time period, you will tell the patient not to have any other drug apart from the drug which you have given it to him. So it means you are controlling the experiment. So that is called as the principle of local control. I hope you understand. If you have any doubts or anything you are missing or not understanding, you can put up in the chat box. We can clear it then and there. Okay. Now, the types of experimental design. Broadly, it is of 3 types. Broadly, first one is the laboratory experiments. The second one is animal experiments, and third one is human experiment. All experiments done in a lab where there are no animal or human required is called as laboratory experiment. For an example, when you are doing something with a microscope, or when you are assessing some biochemical products and all, you are doing a laboratory experiment. Then there is something called as animal experiment. When you are having an animal for testing, you do go with the animal experiment. And then comes the human experiment, in which you actually have humans in your as an experimental group or as a participant in your experimental study design. Animal study, as you know, it is done for anatomy, physiology, pathology, microbiology, immunology, genetics, etc. Experimental reproduction of human disease in animal to confirm etiological hypothesis. Before giving it to human, we give it to the animals, you know, they are the guinea pigs, basically. So we give it to them and then test. If everything is fine, then we go with the human experiment. To test the efficacy of various therapeutic and preventive measures such as vaccine and drugs, and to study the natural disease of natural history of a disease, we go with the animal study. Advantage, you can breed them in laboratories and manipulate it easily according to the wish of the experimenter. They multiply rapidly and enable experimental to carry out certain experiments which are not possible in human beings. But they have limitations. You cannot produce the results whatever is animal is happening. Whatever results are seeing in animal, you cannot say will be seen in human also. And results of animal studies cannot be extrapolated to human beings. Now, there was a first experiment by mistake started in 1510. It was unintentional by Ambrose Pare. It was something related to the surgery where there was no healing of the wound was not happening. So what he did, he devised invented some natural herbal products and put it around the wound of the population who were hurt. And later, next morning, when he saw the wound was healing. So it was the unintentional trial conducted by Ambrose Pare in 1510. Then you would have heard of something called as Limes. This was given by James Lind in 1747, in which he did a scurvy experiment. You know, 12 British sailors with scurvy. So in first group, he gave cedar. In second group, he gives viral. In third group, he gave vinegar. Fourth group, he gave seawater. And group 5, he gave orange and lemon. And group 6, he gave spicy paste. So the result was good. There was a healing, proper healing in the participants, in which they gave lemons, citrus fruits. And then came Louis Pasteur experiment, which was a human experiment. That was an experimental study design for the vaccine. Okay. Now, experimental studies can be again classified into 3 different types. It can be clinical trials or field trials or community trials. Clinical trials means when patient is a unit of the study. There are less patients, so patient individual become the unit of the study. Second is a field trial, when healthy people as a unit of the study. You know, when you do a study in a field. And community trial with community as a unit of the study. You know, there are a lot of, you go to the community and do the study, and that is called as community trial. So it can be a clinical trial, field trial, and a community trial. Then Experimental studies again can be of two types, informal and a formal experimental design. Informal means before and after without control, after only with control, and before and after with control. Now you want to do an experiment where you have to see what happened before and what will happen after doing a treatment or after giving a drug. So, but there is no control group that will come under informal experimental design. There is another design in which you are not going to see what happened before. You just want to see what will happen after giving a drug or a treatment, but it has a control group. So that studies after only with control. And there is a third type of informal study design, experimental study, before and after with control. Now you will check what will happen, what has happened before you give the drug, then check what will happen after the drug, after giving the drug, and it has a control group also. So that is called as before and after with control. The important ones are formal experimental design. They are formally done. They have randomization. Randomization can be done by various methods: block design, Latin square design, and fractal design. We are not going to go into deep of this type of study design because of the limitation of the time. But I hope you understand the word. At least read the word. You can go back and then check in the Google or check some articles. You will understand what are different types of block design. Now, what is a before and after without control? Informal design without control. So you have a treatment, level of treatment before, then you will introduce a treatment and check what will happen after the treatment. This is called as before and after without controls. There is no control group here. Okay. Before hair treatment and after hair treatment. That's all. There is no control group here. Another one is after only with control design. Now you have two groups. You have test group and a control group. You are not going to see what has happened before. You will just do the treatment, and in the control group, you will not do any kind of a treatment, no, nothing. And then you see what has happened afterwards. That is called as after only with control design. Okay. This is an example: 100 teachers, 50 teachers in experimental, 50 teachers in control group. In experimental, we are giving a treatment, that is sensitivity training workshop. And in post-test, we'll check the questionnaire. We'll give them a questionnaire. We'll see what was their moral questionnaire. Okay. And in control group, 50 teachers are there, but they do not receive any sensitivity training. But still, we'll give them a questionnaire. So we'll compare the questionnaire from the first experimental group and the questionnaire in the second control group. So we'll understand the difference between those. So this type of study design is after only with control design. Now in this place, I would like to tell you something about dependent and independent variable. Dependent means on which the independent variable is going to affect. Simple example: oral cancer caused by gutka chewing. Okay. Now oral cancer is dependent on gutka chewing or areca nut chewing. So areca nut chewing will become independent. Getting my point? So oral cancer becomes a dependent, and it is dependent on gutka chewing. So that is why it is called as dependent variable oral cancer and independent variable gutka chewing. In this, the dependent variable is the questionnaire, and independent variable is a workshop, is the sensitivity training which we are giving. I hope you understand now what is the difference between dependent and independent variable. Another example is before and after with control design. So they have a control design. You have to check the value before also and do the treatment and check afterwards also. So that is called as before and after experimental, before and after with control design. So these are the type of informal study design. So I'll give you an example. Treatment, same example as the last one, but in this workshop that they gave a treatment, there was no sensitivity training, but some other workshop was done. and pre-test questionnaire was taken, and then post-test questionnaire was taken. So we are comparing pre-test and post-test. So before and after. So this is what it is called as before and after control design. Then comes the formal experimental design, completely randomized design. This is randomized controlled trial basically. So you have a principle of replication. I told you what is replication. In this you have a principle of randomization, and in this you have a principle of local control also, which was not there in an informal experimental design. So experimental studies are again of two types: quasi means false or not true, and there is a true experimental study in which comes randomized control trial and a non-randomized control trial. Randomized control trials means when you do the randomization and then you do a trial under controlled environment. But in non-randomized control trials, no randomization is done. So whenever you are planning for a research and experimental study, you have to be very careful whether you are including randomization or whether you are not including randomization. Okay. Non-randomization, randomized control trial can be uncontrolled trials also. It can be before and after a comparison trial also. In randomized control trial, there is concurrent parallel trial, crossover trial, and single subject trial. Now, what is the randomized control trial? An epidemiological experiment in which subjects in a population are randomly allocated into groups, usually study and the control group to receive and not receive experimental, preventive, or therapeutic procedure, maneuver, or intervention. It's a true experimental design. Randomized control trial is a gold standard. It is one of the type of a study design which is highest in the level of evidence. So this is what it is, the level of evidence. It starts with in vitro study, lowest in the evidence. Then comes animal studies, ideas, editorials, opinions, case report, case series. Then comes case control studies, cohort studies, and randomized control trials, which can be double-blinded, triple-blinded, single-blinded. And then comes systematic review and meta-analysis, which we are not going to cover in this whole webinar. We'll talk about this later. Okay. Now, randomized control trials again are of different types: parallel group, crossover group, factorial, sequential, Latin square, pre and post test, within group design, post only post test, between group design. We are not going to go deep into different types of randomized control trials. We'll talk about parallel and crossover only. This is a parallel study design. Parallel means parallel. Two groups, one group treatment, one group no treatment. That's all. You're not mixing the groups now. You're not interchanging between the groups. These two groups will be followed right from beginning till the end, and they are separate to each other. There is no intersection of the groups. So that is called as concurrent parallel study design. Subjects are there: children with mucositis, exposed to vitamin E is an experimental group, not exposed to vitamin E is a control group, and we see whether mucositis is treated or not. So this is a concurrent parallel study design. Then comes crossover. Crossover means, you by the name itself will understand crossover. So in the first phase, the participants who are in a treatment group and the participants are in a control group. In the next phase, the control group participant will become a treatment group, and the treatment group participants will become a control group in the second phase. So there is a crossover. Example, antibacterial effect of two toothpaste following a single brushing. So you have subjects, you have 100 subjects, imagine 50 subjects, toothpaste 1 there around, 50 subjects, I'm giving toothpaste number 2. And afterwards, we'll observe after a washout period, we will interchange. First group will get toothpaste number 2 and the second group will get toothpaste number 1. And then we observe. So this is called as crossover randomized controlled trials. You are crossing over. Okay. Now again, randomized controlled trials are classified into 3 different categories: superiority trials, equivalent trials, and non-inferiority trials. Superiority trials means when you want to prove your drug or your method or your treatment to be superior than the gold standard treatment. That is called a superiority trial. Equivalent means if you want to prove your treatment is equivalent to some gold standard treatment, and if you want to prove that your treatment is non-inferiority, either it will be equivalent or some extra effect will be there. Either economically it is good, and that is called as non-inferiority trials. Now, based on the control selection, you have randomized control trials. One is active arm trial and one is passive arm trial. Active arm trials means in the control group, you are giving them some intervention which is active, which will have some effect, a good effect, some good effect. Examples are benchmark control, types are benchmark control trials and positive control trials. But in passive arm, there is no effect. There is no added effect. Either you are giving it as a placebo or you are giving a negative control. Negative control means there is no effect. The patient will be given that control, but it's not going to harm. It's not going to have a positive effect also. It's just a simple water or a distilled water when you are giving. Okay. So that is a negative control trial. In a placebo, you give a drug which is of placebo. The patient thinks that he has been given something which has no effect on the control group. Example for benchmark, when you are developing a mouthwash and you want to compare your mouthwash is superior to the present chlorhexidine mouthwash, you do a benchmark control trial. Positive control trial is any mouthwash which has a good effect or positive effect on the controls. That is a positive control mouthwash. And then negative control. Negative control means one group you are giving 4% Tulsi mouth rinses, and another group you are just giving the distilled water, which is a vehicle for Tulsi mouth rinses. Okay. So that distilled water will not have any active effect on the participants. It's just a simple water, right? So that will be acting as a negative control. That is called as negative control. And then comes the placebo. However, placebo nowadays, the research committee or the research administration has requested, or they have not requested, they have told not to give any kind of a placebo study. Do give them any kind of a gold standard treatment for the patients or for the group. Okay. Now, randomized control trials again can be a clinical trial, can be preventive trials. Clinical trial means like the vaccine and all, these are clinical trials, or any drug. You are giving a new drug for treatment of COVID vaccine, something like that. Preventive trial is something for the prevention, like vaccine or a sera. Risk factor trials are trials which are done for assessing the risk factors. Cessation experiments are for cessation of something like tobacco or alcohol. When you are doing some experimental, that is called a cessation experiment. When you are doing an randomized control trials for etiological agents, that is a trial of etiological agents. And when you do an RCT or a randomized control trial for health services, it is the evaluation of health services. I'll give you one or two examples. Clinical trial, if you're comparing ER-YAG, laser and rotary burrs in excavation of caries, or if you want to see the clinical evaluation of Comtumer and amalgam in primary teeth class 2 restoration, that is a clinical trial, or any COVID drug trial, that becomes a clinical trial. So it can be done for dental materials, it can be done for drugs of prevention, treatment or palliation, clinical devices such as intrauterine devices, surgical procedure, medical counseling, diet, exercise, and everything. Based on drug development, we have a drug trial phases: phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, 4, and phase 5. So all these vaccines or any other drugs, they have to undergo these phases. First is a preclinical phase, which is in vitro and in vivo animal. When we are in an animal, we do. Phase 0 is when you do a trial on 10 people maximum, just to see the pharmacokinetics or a pharmacodynamic of a drug. Phase 1 is when you do it for 20 to 100 people. It becomes a phase 1 when you're testing a drug on healthy volunteers. Phase 2 is 100 to 300 people testing a drug on patients, on actual patients to assess efficacy and safety. Phase 3 is 1,000 to 2,000 people testing out drugs on patient to assess efficacy and safety. Phase 4 is anyone seeking treatment for their physicians. It's a post-marketing surveillance and watching drug use in public. And phase 5 is a translational research. So all the drugs has to undergo clinical trial phases. So as you know, the efficacy of COVID vaccine by Bharat Biotech is 81%, which was determined after the phase 3 trial. Then comes preventive trial, for drug, for vaccine or a chemoprophylactic drug, you can do for any drug, for prevention of any disease is a preventive trial. Okay. Now, risk factor trial, when your preventive trial is a trial of risk factor, it is a type of preventive trial for risk factor in which investigator intervenes to interrupt the usual sequence in a development of disease or those individuals who have risk factors for developing disease. For an example, the major risk factor of coronary heart disease are elevated blood cholesterol, smoking, hypertension, and sedentary habits. Then comes cessation experiments like cessation of cigarette smoking to avoid lung cancer, or smoking cessation in a primary prevention of coronary heart disease. So you do a cessation experiment. Then trial for etiological agents for an example, periodontal infections causing changes in traditional and novel cardiovascular risk factors. So you do a trial of etiological agents. Then you do an evaluation of health services. When you're doing an evaluation of any kind of program, health services program, so that also comes under under experimental design, and that is a type of a clinical trial. All done about RCTs. Now coming to non-RCTs, where you do not do any randomization. So it can be of 3 types: uncontrolled trials, natural experiments, and before and after comparison studies. Uncontrolled trials, there is a room for uncontrolled trials. There is no control group. There is no comparison group. And that becomes a non-randomized controlled trial. Some natural experiments, when you're doing some natural experiments like smokers naturally, they divide them into 2 groups, smoking or no smoking. So when you're doing an experiment on natural circumstances, it is called as a natural experiment. Another example is John Snow discovery of cholera, waterborne disease. Before and after comparison group, you do a before and after comparison studies without control. That also becomes a non-randomized control trial, and before and after comparison studies with control. Sometimes you can also have controls, but there is no randomization there. So it is a non-randomized control trial. So for an example of before and after comparison study without control is a James Lind or scurvy and John Snow cholera study. And there was one study in legislation in Victoria in Australia. I'm sorry for the spelling. Now what they did, they introduced seat belt legislation in 1971. And they wanted to see whether it prevents death and injuries or not. So in 1970, there was 564 deaths, but after the introduction of seat belt, it came to 464. 100 reduced, there was less than 100, less than the previous 1970. So, but this is, they don't have a control group in here, right? Then what they did, same study with the control they did. They compared Victoria's death with the other states. So in Victoria, they have a legislation of seat belt, but in other states, there was no legislation. So from 1970, 564 reduced to 464 in Victoria. But in other states, it increased from 1,426 deaths to 1,429 deaths. So this was an experiment done by them. So this has a control. The other states became control for them. What are the advantage? It is scientifically ideal method. It removes large number of biases. It builds a faith in the finding of the study, and it ensures temporal relationship between exposure and outcome. But the disadvantage of an experimental study, it needs long time, it has ethical issues, it is expensive, and in many situations, especially those which concerns study of risk factors, one cannot randomly allocate human beings into two groups. I'll give you an example, effect of music as intervention for children undergoing pulpectomy. The group was randomly assigned. There was music intervention group, there was a control group. And to investigate and compare the effect of music on pain and depression between the two groups before and after the music therapy. That was the experiment done. So it is a randomized controlled trial, pre and post within group design. So remember, these are the steps. I'm not going to go deep into the different steps of experimental study. You have to draw a protocol first. You should have a reference population. You have a sample population. You have exclusion criteria. Then you have to do randomization into experimental and a control group. You have to do some manipulation in an experimental group, some intervention, follow up, and then check for the outcome. So the protocol, whatever protocol you design for an experimental study, it should specify aim and objective, questions to be answered, that is a research question, criteria of selection of study and control group, size of the sample is very important, the procedure for allocation of studies into study and control group, treatment to be applied. This protocol has, you have to mention all these things in a protocol when you design a randomized control trial. It should also specify standardization of working procedure and schedules, as well as responsibility of the parties involved. Who is going to do what? From when you are going to do what time you are going to do randomization, from what time to what time your experiment is going to happen, when you are going to assess the outcome. All these things should be mentioned in your protocol whenever you are designing experimental design. And the protocol aims to, because the protocol aims to avoid bias and to reduce sources of errors in the study. Your clinical trial question, the research question should always have population, intervention, comparison, outcome, and time. On whom you are going to do the study, what is the intervention, what is the comparison group, what are the outcomes, and when you are going to assess the outcomes, you have to mention, and that is called as PICOT, P-I-C-O-T, PICOT. That has to be mentioned in your research question, in your title of your experimental design, in the aim and objective of your experimental design. Then you have to mention from where you're selecting the reference and experimental population in the study group, from where you are going for the control group. I told you this concept of sampling from the target population to accessible population and sample when we are talking about, when I was talking about the introduction. So you have to mention what population has been sampled, what is the inclusion criteria, what is the eligible criteria, what was how the randomization was done, and when was this, on how many patients the study was completed. You started with 100 population and then it came down to 12 participants. Then types of sampling is very important. The most important is probability sampling. You have to go with probability sampling whenever you do a randomized controlled trial. Sampling will be done after this lecture in detail. I've already mentioned you what are the different types of sampling we'll be covering after this topic. And then randomization. I already told you what is randomization. You have to allocate participants into study group and the control group, and that has to be done randomly. Because randomization is the heart of a clinical trial. So remember, if you're not doing randomization, you're not doing a proper clinical trial. It will give the best confidence that the groups are comparable so that like can be compared with the like. In other words, by random allocation, every individual gets an equal chance of being allocated into either group or any of the trial groups. The entire study population can be stratified into subgroups according to the variable, and individuals within each subgroup can then be randomly allocated into study and control group. Randomization is done only after the participants has entered the study, that is after having been qualified for the trial and has given him informed consent. This is very important. Informed consent is the most important part when you're selecting patients, when you're doing randomization. If the patient is not giving you informed consent, you cannot include the patient forcefully or something like that. There are various types of randomization. I'll just enumerate the names: simple, block, and stratified randomization. And then you have to do manipulation. Manipulation is nothing but the intervention, the experiment which you are going to do when you are doing an experimental study design. And the effect of that experiment you are going to observe later. And follow for how many days you are following the patient. And while following up, also check whether there is attrition. Attrition means sometimes it happens, you are following a patient for 6 months or 1 year, for a 5 year or 10 years. Suddenly, some patients might leave the experimental group or leave the study group or leave the study itself, because there can be death of the patient, or there can be migration. Patient has moved from your town to some other town, and sometimes the patient has lost the interest of being in the group. So you have to understand the attrition, whether there is a decrease or patients are moving away from your study, they are leaving the study. You have to keep a count of it. And then in the assessment, you will check whether there is a positive result or a negative result. Positive result means whether the disease is getting cured, or anything, any severity is reduced or cost is less. That is a positive result. But a negative result, is there any death occurring because of your experiment also? Sometimes because of any drug, there can be death. There can be any adverse effect. If not death, some adverse effect. So you have to keep a track of negative results also, not only positive, but negative results also. And then you have to do the statistics. It can be a statistical significance or it can be clinical significance. Now, there is a big difference between statistical significance and a clinical significance. We'll talk about this later when we are talking about statistics. But in a simple concept, statistical significance means if the p-value is significant or not. If the results what you are getting, if there is it's statistically there is a difference or not. Clinical significance means whether actually because of the drug patients are benefited or not. Okay, for an example, you are given drug to 10 patients, 6 are benefited, 4 are not benefited. Statistically, it might not be significant, but clinically at least 6 are benefited, right? So that is called as clinical significance. Just for a layman person, I'm just giving an example. What is the difference between statistical significance and clinical significance? Then there are various tests. I've already shown you in the morning what are different parametric tests and non-parametric tests. Remember the words, remember the name of the test. We'll talk about this tomorrow when we are doing statistics. And in clinical significance, we check the effect size or number needed to treat. These are the two important clinical significance. What was the effect size? What is the difference between patients who are benefited, who are not benefited, something like that. So we are not going to go deep into clinical significance, but just for your understanding, I put up in the slide. And then comes clinical trial. What are the biases? So bias can be because of anybody, because of the investigator. It can be because of the participant, because of the statistician, because of the literature, because of the instrument, and there can be extraneous variable, outside variables, something confounding variables. So can give you a source of bias. So how do you limit the bias? By scientifically collection of sample, you can limit bias. You cannot completely reduce the bias, or you cannot wipe out the bias. Anyhow, bias will be there, but you can reduce the level of bias, either by scientific collection of sample, properly scientifically collecting, or standardization of the instrument. If your instrument, tools, device, equipments are standardized, If your examiners or the investigators are standardized, then you can limit the bias. If you do a proper matching of the case and the control group, if there is proper blinding, blinding means neither the patient knows what kind of treatment he is having. Sometimes neither the investigator also knows what is happening, what treatment is given to who. Only one person, either the pharmacologist or somebody outside the study, will know which patient is given what type of treatment. You have to blind. If you do blinding, your study becomes more better. But yes, of course, in most of the studies, blinding is not possible. In some of the studies, blinding is not possible. But at least in drug trials or any other biomaterial or something like that, you can go with blinding. And allocation concealment. Allocation concealment means whatever drug you are giving to the participants, he should not know what drug is being given, and it has to be clearly, it should not be clearly seen what drug he is going to get. It should be hidden. That process is called as allocation concealment. So there are various methods of allocation concealment. I'll talk to you about it a little later in 1 or 2 slides. Blinding can be single blinding if the patient is blinded, double if patient and the researcher is blinded, and triple blinding if patient, researcher, and the statistician, all 3 of them are blinded. So that is called blinding. Blinding is important for bias elimination. And then allocation concealment is sequentially numbered, opaque, sealed envelope. Whatever drug you are giving, the patient and the investigator should not know whatever drug is being given. So it has to be sealed, numbered, and the coding A or B, what drug you are giving, A or B you are giving, that has to be put up in an envelope. It has to be numbered. The envelope should be opaque. It should not be seen, and it should be sealed and only given to during the experiment. It can be pharmacy controlled, and if you are giving any drug in a coded in a container, the container should be similar for the experimental group also, for the control group also. It should be numbered or coded, and there should be a central randomization method. It can be through computers. You can put up numbers in the computer. Computer itself will generate which drug will go to which participant. So that is called a central randomization. Last, it comes to the quasi-experimental, where there is no randomization done. They do not use any randomized assignment for comparison. And I'll give you an example, a quasi-experimental study to assess the effectiveness of structured teaching program regarding oral hygiene among the mothers of preschool children residing at a village. The outcome was to know the knowledge regarding oral hygiene. Patients were given pre-test and post-test measurement before and after a 4-week intervention group. Note, there was no randomization done and there was no comparison group. Quasi-experimental design are a reasonable alternative to randomized control trial when you cannot have, if you are not able to do randomization, if you don't have a control group, you can go with quasi-experiment. Useful when pre-selection and randomization is difficult, and it saves time and resources in comparison to the experimental design, but it has a limitation. No equivalent groups may differ in many ways. In addition to difference between treatment condition introducing bias, there is no blinding is being able to be done. Potential bias of the sample must be acknowledged when reporting findings, and causal inference are weakened by the potential for bias, biases. So there are a lot of weaknesses or a limitation in quasi-experimental study. Last, but clinical trial registry of India, whatever clinical trial or a randomized controlled trial you are planning to do, please register it to Clinical Trial Registry of India. It was launched in 20th July 2007. Initiative since 15th as a voluntary measure since 15th June 2009. It's a trial registration in the CTRI have been made mandatory by the Drugs Controller General India, DCGI, and moreover, editor of biomedical journals of 11 major journals of India declared that only registered trials would be considered for publication. So this is why Clinical Trial Registry is very important, called as CTRI, Clinical Trial Registry India. Registration of trial will ensure transparency, accountability, and accessibility of clinical trial. So primary register of International Clinical Trial Registry platform is also there, ctri.nic.in. This is a website where you can register. And this is how the website looks like. I don't know how it looks like now, but when I took the screenshot, it was like this. To conclude, an experiment is a scientific procedure undertaken to make a discovery, test a hypothesis, or demonstrate a known fact. The best study design is chosen depending upon several factors like a dependent and independent variable, type 1 control, confounding factors, target population, etc. A multi-centric, double-blind, randomized control trial is the best study design to establish a causal relationship between the variables. Thank you so much. I hope you got some idea about experimental design and you will carry on with your research proposal where you can design an experimental design, or you can design an observational study, or you can design a case control or a cohort study. If you have any doubts, put up in the chat box or direct message to the p-value. And that's all. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, guys.